We
Oh,
and we admit everyone. Ah, there's everyone.
there.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to this webinar. Um, us and Luis had some time to talk, and now we are very proud to host this first Origin webinar, which is something we've been wanting to do for a long time. Luis has asked us to do it since last year, and he gave us a presentation in June about the situation of the Brazilian coffee market, and we really thought this is something that all our clients need to hear. This is something that everyone who works with Brazilian coffee needs to hear, and even that other producers need to hear. And so, yeah, I can't really say much else except without further ado, I want to give the word to our valued and trusted partner in Brazil, Luis.
So good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much, Martin and Leonard, for this unbelievable opportunity. I wish we could be everyone in the same room, sharing experiences faces to face, sharing some coffees. Uh, I think we should record the session. So as Leonard said, I made a presentation to this SIDAP team on June, showing some of our points and how we were viewing the situation in Brazil. And now I made some updates. So I'm gonna bring you some data. I will start saying that I don't have the answers. I have no single clue or idea where the market will go. There are things that we can see. There are some things, some facts that we can make some analysis. And my idea is breaking you some things from the past, so we can start looking and trying to understand where we are and trying to predict as much as possible where we go. So that's the idea of the presentation. I'll try share the screen with you.
Just quickly, what I forgot to say was we will do the presentation, and then afterwards we will have a short Q&A session, because I imagine there are a lot of questions that will pop up. So first, yeah, we do the webinar and then the interactive part.
Okay, I'm just having some trouble with my screen. Let's see why. Just a second. Do you see it now? You see my screen?
Yep.
Yeah.
Works.
Okay. Let me just decrease this. So as I said, it's a great pleasure. I'll try to bring you some valid information for your business in order we can try understand the craziness that is happening right now, but how could you try better face this? Okay. So this is the structure of the presentation. I will make some comments about Brazilian supply and demand. So looking to the past, looking to what happened in the last 5 years, and how were we before the frosts, before the logistics chaos. So what were the expectations for this crop? And also then we are going to start adding some new information to that, so we can start trying to build any kind of scenario or scenarios where we can plan our future choices. I will have a huge, I'll spend some more time on crop weather situations, or talking about weather, talking about how coffee tree reacts to weather. So where were we during the harvest? Where are we now? And what are the predictions for the future? And then I will finish with some attention points for where we now and what should we expect. So I want to start with this pretty new statement from Herodotus from Greece that used it to say, like, thinking about the past to understand the present and to idealize the future. So I begin with this chart. I will come back to this in the end of the presentation. But just to show that it's not the first time the market goes pretty high. We as human beings, we don't have a pretty good memory. There is a lot of new generation in coffee that don't have all this experience with the past, what happened in the past. And sometimes we get really scared because probably it's the first time we are facing this kind of situation, even with these new facts, the pandemic, the stress it's causing in us, the social distancing, the logistic problems that we are facing, the demand, so the news. So this does not help us to try understand the situation and to try take decisions because we are really scared. We are emotionally affected, and it's pretty hard to think and to try take decisions. But I will come back to this in the end of presentation. Let's see if it makes some sense. So this is the Brazilian supply and demand for the last years. And why I talk about Brazil? Because it is the biggest coffee producer, because whatever happens in Brazil affects the sea market, affects our specialty coffee sector too, because we have this relation. And if we take a look at the crop size, it's this line, we are going to see that the harvest 14-15, Brazil produced around 55 million, then 50 million, around 60 million, 50 million, 66 million, 68, 58 million, and then the record massive last year crop around 70 million coffee bags. And this year, the crop that we just harvested and that we are selling and trying to ship when we find some space was supposed to be around 55 million coffee bags. And there in this line, we have the carry out. So what is the carry out? Is what was produced less what we had in our stocks, and the less the consumption and exportations. And so this was the carry out. So when we see this year, before the crop, we were comfortable in the beginning of 2021 with a carry out of around 13.5 million coffee bags. But the prediction for next year, for January, February, March of 2021, so before the beginning of 22 crop, was the lowest carry out of the last years. So we were already predicting a 6.3 million coffee bags of carry out. That would give us 1.2 months of coffee before the harvest of the next year. So we are looking the predictions of this crop. So 2021, we were supposed to harvest 55 million coffee bags, and we were supposed, according to our exportation and our consumption, to have a problem in the beginning of next crop. So the market was already expecting this. The market was already looking this. After these predictions, what we had was some droughts, we had some frosts, and then we started having some logistic chaos. But the problem, the first big problem was, from a 70 million coffee bag crop, we went to a 55. So it's a huge decrease. And I will show where this decrease went from and why. So I'm not talking about 22, I'm talking about 21. I'm talking what we are seeing now, because sometimes we suffer a lot with the future and we forget to try to understand the present and why things are happening. So before everything, we were already having this red light here. So the production was much smaller, and the carry out was much smaller. Of course, now we have exportations problems because of logistics. So maybe we will decrease exportations. Maybe this will take a little longer to happen, but the balance was this. And in the top of this 54, the drought that continued during the harvest, because this data is from May, June of 21, we probably lost another 1.5 million coffee bags. So there is another gap here. So this was the forecast of the 2021 crop. So this crop here, these 70 million coffee bags, so let's come back to 2021, was for sure the record crop from Brazil, okay? It was no doubt the biggest crop ever. The quality was very good because there was a dry season during harvest, and the temperatures were good. But because of this record production and because the weather was super dry during the harvest, the coffee plants were really stressed after the record production. Okay, so remember that what happens in Brazil, you have one bigger crop, one smaller crop, one bigger crop, one smaller crop, because of how Arabica coffee behaves. So the production is made in the branch that grows in the previous year. So the branch needs to grow, and then in the other year it's going to produce. If the plant has too much production, the branches are not going to grow a lot for the next crop. And that's why you have this biannual behavior in Arabica coffee. So if we had a record crop, what was expectation? A lower crop. Nothing wrong with this. The thing is that the drought amplified the gap. That's the point. And what is the other thing that we need to have in mind? So record crop, small crop. What is the next expectation? Another record crop. And this is where things start becoming not so good, because we already had the problem here of having much less coffee. The expectations of the market was a 2022 record crop, because here the coffees were supposed to rest, the coffee trees. And this will probably not happen, not another huge record crop in 2022, okay? But we are going to arrive there. So this crop was record 20, the crop that we harvested in 2020, that we negotiated in 2020 and the beginning of 2021. But there in the end of the crop, in the end of 2020, September, October, November, December, we had a big drought and a hot wave during the spring, just after the harvest. So the scenario was, let's look to the past. Record crop, stressed plants, and then a hot wave with a big drought, okay? So what is the spring? What is September to December in Brazil? Is when we just getting out of the winter, so temperatures are becoming higher, we start receiving the rains, and exactly when we receive is the flowering period. So there was a huge drought and a hot wave exactly when the plants were supposed to recover from the harvest and start flowering. The effect is that the flowering was not good. The plants had no enough leafy area to storage the flowers to becoming beans. And the effect of this is what caused this. So from a 70 million coffee bags, we came to a 55 million coffee bags. First, because of the biannual effect, but the amplitude was increased because of the drought and the heat wave that we had just after the harvest, okay? So for 2021, this is what we had. We had this prediction of 54, 55 million coffee bags. And what was the big problem? The big problem is that the gap was in Arabica coffee. So Arabica coffee that produced around 50 million coffee bags in 2020 was supposed to produce 33 million coffee bags in 2021. and it is a 30 to 35 reduction on Arabica. And a it's a huge, it's 1.5 million coffee bags, but for Brazilian production, it's a small improvement in Robusta, so higher 1.5. Why? Because Robusta regions that are Espírito Santo and Rondônia, that are located in the north side of Brazil, did not receive a so severe drought as the southeast areas received. So from this 54 million coffee bags prediction, 55, we still had problems of lack of rains during February, March, and April, depending on the region. This caused the reduction of the screen and sometimes the reduction of the density. So according to the region, they also had some problems of quality. Why? This is how the Arabica coffee bean develops. So this is just after flowering, the bean starts growing. So when we have drought problems on this stage, that is around 2 to 3 months after flowering, we are gonna have problems on the screen size. Why? Because this is when the coffee fruit grows, the cells, they divide and grow, and you create the space where the seed, where the embryo is gonna develop. So if we have droughts here, in Brazil, the flowering is on September, October. So if you have drought from September to December, you will have problems of screen. You have lower screen sizes. Instead of 17, 18, 16, you'll probably have more 15, 14, and puberries. So this is one thing not everybody knows. People think that when you have a drought, when the coffee is developing in the end of the cycle, it's gonna cause you the problem of screen. No, if you have lack of water and nutrients on this phase, you know that you have a decrease in your higher screens. And that's what happened last year. And then if you have a drought here during the ripening period, what's gonna happen? The plant will anticipate the maturation, so it will not have all the complexity in the beans. And you're probably gonna have lower density of the bean, so less things to be transformed when you roast. So this said, from the 55 million coffee bags, we can expect also not only a reduction in Arabica, but also a reduction in specialty coffees. And this will direct impact on prices. So finding the best coffees, because you have less, you have lower screens, and you have less things to be roasted in the regions that were affected by the drought, will make the availability of specialty coffees of this year, this crop that we are negotiating. It's gonna be more, it's gonna increase the scarcity of specialty coffees. And this is one of the reasons why these coffees are becoming much higher price, not only because of New York, even with our currency being weaker, but because the availability of specialty coffees decreased according to the region we are. So just to compare, the problem from 2020 to 2021 was this huge decreasing of 16 to 18 million coffee bags of Arabica coffee in Brazil. And this impacted Arabica differentials in almost all origins in the world, not only in Brazil. And this gap is gonna follow for the next crop, because again, we were expecting to achieve another 70, 72 million coffee bags, but this is not what's gonna happen, as I'm gonna show why. So what was the weather situation in June? So June, we are harvesting coffee in Brazil. And what caused this situation? So everything that I placed until now, the drought and the hot wave in the end of 2020, the dryness in February, March, April of 2021. What happened? Was this anything crazy, anything that we never saw? So let's take a deeper look on this. This is a Brazilian map, and blue and green means we have water in the soil, enough water in the soil. And the yellow and red colors means that we don't have enough moisture in the soil for the plants. So if we look in June, the southeast of Brazil, where located almost all the Brazilian producing regions, were under drought. That's normal because this is the drier season in Brazil, okay? But this is how, this is what we had in June. So everywhere was dry. And it was dry. The problem is not being dry on June. The problem is that it came dry from February, March, and April. So there was an improvement in maturation in terms of it decreased the time of maturation. The plant was stressed with ethylene production. And why did we had that hot wave? Why did we had that drought? Because this is Pacific Ocean. This is Pacific Ocean water. And this is the temperature of Pacific Ocean water. And this is where it most impacts the Brazilian climate. Because the water comes from the Atlantic Ocean, it passes through the Amazon forest, and then it comes to the southeast. And we call it the wall of moisture in Brazil. It does this movement. But it needs to pass here and find moisture. If this water of Pacific is colder, you have less evaporation, you are going to have much less formation of rains to the southeast. The rains are going to be stuck here in the Amazon forest. So if you look here, it's exactly what we are seeing. The rain is stuck in the Amazon forest in the north of Brazil, and we have a drought in the southeast. And what is this called? This is called La Nina. So La Nina effect, climatic phenomenon, happens when the Pacific Ocean waters are colder. How colder? If they are more than half degrees Celsius colder, we will gonna characterize as a La Nina. If it is warmer, we are gonna characterize as El Nino. And during El Nino, the southeast Brazilian regions will receive more rains, while the Amazon forest will receive less rains. And if we have between less half and plus half degrees Celsius, this is called neutrality, okay? So here's the graphic. What did we had in 2020? As I told you, we had a hot wave and we had a drought in the end of the year. So August, September, October, November, October, November, December. So it's a really well characterized La Nina event effect. And that's what caused the drought in Brazil. And it went until February, March, and April, when we started coming back to a neutrality, okay? So La Nina event, Pacific Ocean waters colder, caused the decrease of rains in the Brazilian coffee production zones in the southeast, increased the Amazon forest rains, and that decreased the fires in the Amazon forest. And then it started changing to neutrality. And what were the models showing at that time? So in June, the models were showing that from the mid of the year, the climate would come back to a neutrality phase. So Pacific Ocean waters would come back to between less half and plus half. It would be a neutrality time. What is neutrality? So neutrality means rains and temperature around the average, but when we have a neutrality, we had a much higher risk of cold waves coming inside the country. So neutrality means risk of cold waves. So what was the predictions that we made and we passed it to this IDAP team in June of 2021? We said because of COVID, and that at that time we were having a lot of problems with COVID in Brazil because of the lack of vaccination. It's becoming much better now. Around 65% of population already vaccinated. Older population getting the buffer, the third doses of the vaccination. So the cases are decreasing a lot. But at that time, there was a risk of harvest interruption. And there was some regions that had some problems during harvest. Was not in the amplitude that we thought could happen, but it happened like localized. We were predicting volatility in our currency in real because of political and economy picture, and we saw that. So real changed this year between reais and 10 cents per dollar to almost 6 reais per dollar. This is a huge fluctuation in the currency, and it directly impacts the internal prices to purchase coffees from farmers and the differentials for exporting. We also predicted that the winter and the dry season ahead would be, it is always a concerning period, because then you start this climatic weather market, and then we saw the volatility of the coffee prices. All the news of Brazil may have a cold wave, may not have a cold wave, what were the impacts? And we were alerting that neutrality, that climatic neutrality, facilitates the cold fronts during the harvest. So what happened after this? What happened is that during the end of the fall and the winter, we had 3 cold waves. And this is, for example, a picture of South Minas. You see here the ice. This is frost. The coffee was completely burned, the coffee trees. This is a picture from Paraná. Same thing, coffee trees are completely burned. So what is frost? Frost is when the temperature of the leaf achieves -3 degrees Celsius. So what happens? The sap that is inside the leaf will expand its volume and will explode. And as this happens in the beginning of the morning, when the sun radiation starts defrosting the ice, so it will steal heat from the leaf, and that will make it colder. It's gonna make kind of ice crystals inside the leaves, and it will explode the leaf, and that's why it sunburns. So some farmers say that the sun burned the leaves in the morning after the frost. In fact, it's the cold, the defrosting of the ice that is stealing the heat to defreeze the water, and this is decreasing the temperature inside, and it's exploding the cells. So this is the ugly, this is the thing that we see. It was kind of localized in terms that not all farms were affected, but in the regions, in the micro regions that it occurred, some farms were really devastated. It's really ugly. It's super sad to see, but we see that it's not general, it's not spread. And it's still really hard to predict what was the loss for 2022. Why? Because the predictions is around 10 to 15% decrease of the Arabica coffee production for 2022. But there are these are visual signals of the frost, the damage. You lost tissues, you lost leaves. These areas will need to be pruned. So there is no production for 2022. But there are the hidden effects of the frost that I'm going to talk about some of them. That we still need until at least December to confirm the real impacts of the frost. And the fall and the winter also follow the drought. So the drought that started that in the end of 2020, that we had some regions on February, March, April of 2021 that occurred during the winter, June, July. It expanded to the winter and even the spring of 2021. So is this any really catastrophic thing that we never saw, that never happened? So again, let's look back to the past. And I brought this news from Reuters that I think it's nice and informative. That says that this research conducted by Refinity comparing temperatures and precipitation in the 30-year period from 1959 to 1988 with the other 30 years, 1989 to 2018, shows that the climate in Brazil is on average becoming wetter and warmer. But we were having drought and cold. So these severe, these extreme events, it's really hard to predict them, and they are kind of cyclic. But what I want to call the attention is this. The most recent severe frost was in 1994. And in that case as well, there was the devastating combination of drought and frost. So if we come back in the past, there was this huge La Nina event. There was a huge frost that affected the coffee trees in Brazil, and it was followed by 3 frosts during the winter. So it's not something new. It's something that already happened in the past. The prediction is that it's gonna decrease in terms of cold events, but then the predictions are that these hot waves are gonna improve. So some techniques should be applied to start leading with this and providing and understanding better. But what is clear here is that it's not something to panic about that is gonna devastated everything and that it's something that already happened in the past, but we didn't have as many social media. Information was not so easy to be shared. So we need to try see in the best way the amplitude of the problem and how can we face this as a chain. So this is September. So we just came back from the winter. We had the 3 frosts, the drought. This is a drought picture. So what is the difference is during the drought, the leaves, they dry and they stay in the branches. So they dehydrate in the branches. So this is how you see a drought. While during the frost, the leaves, they burn. So this is like in 1 or 2 hours of severe cold, you see this impact. And this goes 30, 45, even 60 days until you have this point where the leaves, they really dry in the plants, okay? But this drought, it continued, and this is the rain anomaly of September 2021, so last month. So last month, we still had this scenario. So this is a deficit of rains. So this red color here is less 100 millimeters of rain in September. Why September is so important? Because September is the beginning of the spring, and the beginning of spring, as I show you here, the beginning of spring is when the rains come and when we have the flowering. So this is the recuperation of the plants, the regrowth of the buds, and the coffee flowering period. That's why September is so important. So for 2022, we already have a delay. We already have a delay in flowering. Why? Because September was super dry and in all coffee regions in Brazil, okay? So we already have at least 1 month delay in the flowerings. Remember, the trees are stressed because of drought. They are stressed because of cold waves. If they were burned or not, we are gonna see some things. But after that, we had a drought, and it's not something new again. Our experience in the field is that every time we have severe winters with frosts, what follows is a dry period. So if you have, it's super cold, the moisture goes super low, you can predict, or the expectation is that after this, you are gonna have a dry period. And that's exactly what happened here. So what's the situation now? This graphic I took last night. So October 2021, and these graphics I use agro-meteorological service that is called Agrimax, and it's really useful, all the data they have in terms of hydric balance, in terms of moisture and temperatures. So you see that the drought continues. Now it's really severe in the northeast of Brazil. Paraná, this is where I am located. This is Fazenda, California. Paraná in the south received really good rains in the last 15 days, more than 100 millimeters. Some parts of Minas Gerais received some rains, but São Paulo region and Bahia region are still dry. So you can see better here. So Paraná in a good situation, parts of Minas Gerais in a good situation, but São Paulo, like Cerrado de Minas, Matas de Minas, High Mogiana are still dry. And that's why market keeps nervous because of this situation. So some of the physiological problems that may be caused by weather stress, and I'm just considering right now where we are during flowering period for coffee. So coffee buds should be awakened because of the rains, because of the temperature, and we should have, the expectation was for healthy plants full of leaves and flowers. One of the problems, for example, when we have a severe drought, is that the plant is gonna lose its leaves. So when we look, it looks beautiful, it's astonishing, we have a lot of flowers, but as we don't have leaves, the plant is not gonna have solar panels or the leaves to produce carbohydrates, because the leaves are the solar panels. The leaves will make photosynthesis and will give energy to the plant to keep the flowers and to make the beans grow. So when we see this, there is the false sensation of a beautiful, astonishing flower. It's not. These beans are not going to be kept in the plants. You're just going to see the flowers, but then you're going to have the flowers dropping and also the beans dropping. So this is one of the huge problems. Second problem, and this is caused, you see that these plants, they are healthy. You have the leaves, it's pretty good, prepared for flowering. But then if you have drought, if it's dry and the moisture of the air is low, the moisture in the soil is low, and the temperature is too high, more than 35 degrees Celsius, you have this that we call a little star. So this flower is sterile. It's not going to become a bean. Because of the low moisture, because of the high temperature, it's not going to make the fecundation, and this will not going to turn into beans. So if we see this, it's a physiological problem of a weather stress in the plant. Other big problem, and this one is a tricky one. So some of the plants that were not burned, completely burned by the frost, but that they received the cold weather, in the last part of the producing branches of coffee that are called plagiotropic coffees, we have one really sensitive tissue that is called meristematic tissue, responsible for producing one hormone that's gonna control how the coffee branch is gonna grow. If the cold burned this last part of the branch, it simulates a pruning process. And what's going to happen? Instead of having flowers, you are going to start having leaves and branches. And this can be accentuated, it can be improved if we had a drought during the differentiation of the buds. So the flowering period occurs in September, October, November. But the differentiation of the buds occur during March and April. So when the plant is finishing to feed the beans that are going to be harvested, March, April, the buds are going to receive the hormonal answer or trigger saying, defining, you are going to become a leaf or you are going to become a flower. If the plant was stressed, so you are feeling the cherries, so you demand a lot of energy, and you are also differentiating the buds to become flowers. If you have a nutritional or a hydric stress at this time, you are going to have a much bigger differentiation for leaves. And remember I said we had a drought during February, March, and April. So what happened is that you see here a huge amount of leaves instead of flowers. This is the drought effect. And some branches instead of flowers. And this is a frost effect. So why the market is pretty nervous is even if the areas were not completely burned by the frost, this is something that's gonna happen really frequently. So until they may measure this and evaluate the real impacts of frost, is gonna take a while until probably November, December. And after this, remember, we still have the whole fruit cycle. So we need a lot of rains here to have good screens and nutritional feeding of the plants. We need really good conditions here because then is the maturation period until we achieve to April, May, June of 2022. So we have some problems now during the flowering, and there is a big question mark on what's gonna happen for the fruit development from now on. So now we are gonna take a look what is predicted from now on. So we take a look at the past, we are taking a looking at the present. So now let's try take a look in the future. What is happening right now? Pacific Ocean waters are kind of neutrality, and now they start becoming colder again. So this is the situation. Remember the graphic I showed you from June? So we had this La Nina in November, December, September of 2020. We have La Nina in the beginning of 2021, so it kept being dry. Then we have a neutrality during the winter of 2021, and that's why we had the frosts and the cold waves. And what the models are showing now is that we are probably gonna see another La Nina during our summer, and then it's gonna come to neutrality in the winter. So repeating what we saw last year. This is the chaos. We never saw this before. No. If you look here, 2010, 2011, we have two La Nina in sequence. If we look here, 2016, 2017, we have two La Ninas in sequence. So what models are showing now is that we may have two La Ninas in sequence. And this is gonna be drought again. And then if you have neutrality during the winter, we may have cold fronts again. So the scenario may repeat. And this is what causing part of the panic. And this graphic shows you better. So the blue bar is the probability of having a La Nina. So there is almost 70% of risk of having La Nina on November, December, and January. And then there is a 70% chance of having neutrality during April, May, and June. And that would repeat what we saw last year. The good news is that the prediction of rains for October, November, and December is really good amount of rains for the production zones, and a more severe drought, a more severe La Nina effect in the northeast of Brazil. So we are talking about 600 millimeters here, the green areas. It would give us around 200 millimeters per month, what would assure flowering and what would assure the beginning development of the beans. So we are talking of this phase here. So it would be assuring this initial phase here, and a question mark would be put on the ripening and the end of filling the beans, okay? So what would be the attention points for this present or near future? Logistics, we are facing a chaos in logistics. We never saw this. We have different kind of problems. We have the regrowth of the demand, and then by of a sudden, everybody needed supplements. And we have a lot of containers stuck in the ports. The ports are all full. So this is increasing the transit time. So containers are taking much longer to come back to recharge. And this is the first thing. The second thing, the shipping lines are destinating the biggest part of the containers for highest added value products. And they are taking commodities, and it's not been easy to find space. The third thing is that we are seeing abusive prices going up like 3, 4, 5, 6 times more the frightened prices that regular, because the companies are having low space and they are negotiating in this way, and even pay more is being really difficult to find space. So we are seeing our bookings being declined every day, and we are trying 6, 7 weeks in advance, and still having a lot of problems. We are in average 6 to 8 weeks late with our shipments, including the ones with Decide Up. We are gonna start moving these coffees next week. Thank you, God. And now I think we're gonna get back in the trails. We need to have in mind that 2022 is a presidential election year in Brazil. And this is gonna bring crazy currency volatility, and this may affect the market as a whole. So in regular years, every time real becomes weaker, it makes an opposite effect in New York. So New York goes down because farmers are receiving more in reais per bag in Brazil. And this year was a different thing, that both real was weaker and New York was higher, what made a kind of a good situation to pay more for farmers, but then we had the lack and the scarcity of product. Climate, we need to have climate in mind. So this risk of La Nina during 21-22 summer. So we need these rains that are predicted at least until December. There is a good prediction that things are going to change and we are going to have good flowering, good beginning of development. And then we need the confirmation of the rains from January to April, when we are going to define quality, when beans are going to be filled, and then we are going to have the ripening period. And the risk of neutrality during 2022 fall winter, so cold waves risk. Is that common to have 2 years in sequence with severe frost? No. May it occur? Yes. So there's no way to say this is what's going to happen. It's again about probability. We see here that most models, they are showing this, but it's still a 60% probability, 70% probability. This is the data that we have, and this is the data that we need to take in consideration and see how it's changing, see what is the tendency, and let's keep an eye on this. Another point of attention: necessity of planning longer. So we were kind of really good in terms of logistics, was really efficient, the prices were low, so things were really smooth. We were really in a comfortable situation, but now things are changing. The prices are not low anymore. There is a scarcity of product, not only in Brazil. So we really need to plan longer. Logistics is taking longer. So we'll need to work together in terms of having our stocks, in terms of moving this coffee, approving these coffees, having longer contracts, because that makes us much easier our work at origin too, to commit with farmers and to keep things moving. Big, enormous attention to the demand regrowth and resources availability and costs, because now with pandemic coming to a different level or situation, the demand starts to regrow, and there is the risk of scarcity of resources in all areas, making the costs higher, bringing inflation of food, of all prices. So we need to have this all these plans in our mind of this new situation. See the value of good and long relationships. Use us, use Capricornio, use our information, use Decide Up. We have a pretty solid and good relation and transparent relationship for 5 to 6 years now. And I think no matter where we go, if we go together, I think it's going to be much easier and better for everybody. Have in mind the risks of default at origins. Why? One is the weather problem. So if you have a drought, if you have a frost, the farmer will not have the product to deliver. The second is the behavior of prices going too high, and then some farmers will not deliver the coffees. And then it's a big risk, because then they are gonna have in mind like a double price in the market, comparing with the contracts that they had. So if we don't use tools to manage the risks of default at origin, this may be a huge risk in your books. And I'm not talking only about Brazil. I still see Brazil as a really safe country for this. But we are seeing this more and more in several origins. And according to the origin, it happens, for example, in Colombia, and then you are going to make the differentials for washed coffees to explode. Or in centrals, the milds are going to explode. So we need to have in mind this condition. If prices go even higher, there is the default risk at origins. And again, logistics. Why? Because we don't see in a short-term scenario any improvements. And even the shipping companies, they are saying that it's going to take at least until the mid of next year until things come to the normality. So have in mind, transit times are going to be bigger. So check your stocks, check your requests, your contracts, your inventories, and we need to plan longer. Again, let's plan longer. Let's take attention with the demand regolf, because maybe you have an increase in the demand. You don't have coffee, you don't have resources. Use us to think in the future, to make longer contracts, longer inventories. Take a look at all origins, not only Brazil. There is a risk of default, so manage your risks according to the origins you use, and have in mind that logistics is not going to improve, at least in the next 6, 7, 8 months. So just to finish, let's take a look in the past. So this was the big and horrible black frost of 1975. And then coffee achieved almost $350 per pound. This was the big drought of 1985 and all events in Brazil. That's why Brazil has this importance in the market. This was the event of drought plus frosts in 1994. And then we are seeing coffee over $250 per pound. This was the big drought of 2014. And then we saw coffee around $3 per pound. And now here where we are. Where are we going? I have no idea. What I know is that in the past, we have space to coffee to go even higher. We saw this in the past. We saw $3, we saw $250, we saw $350. So there is still space. Economical huge funds are looking at coffee, and they are bringing all this crazy volatility. And so we need to have this in mind. We saw these climatic events, but what we also saw is that we have these huge prices and then prices go down. So it's not something that's going to up. It's going to keep improving. So this is what history shows us. 95 was a frost that devastated Brazil. So we have this peak and then prices went down. 95 was a horrible drought, even worse than the one we are having now. 94 was the frost that specialists are considering of the same intensity of what we had this year. So they're comparing the 2021 cold waves with 1994, and it is the recovery of around 30 years, 27, 28 years. And this drought, that what specialists are saying, that we are seeing more and more droughts and heat waves, it depends the region. So this achieved exactly Minas Gerais, where we have the biggest producing in Brazil. What happens is when we have these hot waves or we have these droughts, it does not achieve all the regions in the same way. So according to the region, sometimes it goes a little northern, a little southern, and depends the region that is impacted, we will have more or less impact in the market. So again, no matter where it will go, if we go together, we'll all be much stronger, and it's going to be much better for every one of us. So just to finish, I think I am around the time. Thank you very much for your time, for your attention, and really special thank for the incredible partnership we have that we are delivering. I'm really proud of being part of this Side Up family. All this amazing work that is being done. It's really changing the boundaries, the paradigms. And again, use us, use this Side Up. And it's a great pleasure, my friends. That's what I had to present.
Wow, Luis. You astonished us in June, but that was only half of the story. And we're thank you for this jaw-dropping presentation. And it's really a story that I don't think many people in the specialty industry hear. We don't have many analysts on this side because we've been in a luxury position, and a lot of our customers have when it comes to Brazil, but now when it comes to all our origins. And I think before talking about you talked in the beginning, you said about we have amnesia as an industry. We don't have a long memory. And I think we're now leapfrogging the specialty industry from having maybe no memory or not thinking about this to looking at the patterns and how history can show us the future. So thank you very much. Really, really very much appreciated. I'm glad we recorded this video also for more people to see it in the future. And I'm opening up the floor for questions. I'm sure there might be a few. So if you have a question, and please introduce yourself and ask the question.
Nobody asked a question, then I'm gonna start up. My name is Yvonne. I'm a newbie in the specialty coffee area. Actually, a passion for coffee already for many years. I used to be home barista and starting up the business right now. I lived for a couple of years in Indonesia. Actually, that is the region what really made me starting roasting my own coffee. And naturally, I work a lot more with milk. So for the big dairy cooperative. And I do really appreciate, Luis, your presentation and the things you share with us with regards to the impact, the weather impact, and the difficulties you face in that region. And I was wondering to what extent you, the cooperative, the farmers also look into the future, and of course weather we cannot predict, but there might be some solutions, ideas that you guys also have to make plants more resistant, more robust, to do kind of those type of initiatives. Is that something in your mind? Is there something also we as local roasters or bigger roasters can fund, support, or help with?
First, nice to meet you. Welcome to our world. Nobody knows anything in specialty coffee where every day we are learning a lot. There are some things. So for example, healthy, wealthy plants, they react much better to whatever stress. So one of the things that being used with a lot of success is pruning. Pruning because the way coffee behaves, instead of having to think or to waste the energy feeding the beans and trying to make leaf area, you make the plant 1 year just make leaf area. So we're gonna have a huge amount of leaf area. And in the other year, it's gonna think or it's gonna just feed the beans. So we have much wealthier. So in this case, agronomical support, and we have one project that is called 4 Seasons, where our agronomists go to the field, We work really close with farmers, checking their soil analysis to better apply fertilizers without wasting or without giving too much to the plant, because then you're going to have diseases. Pests and diseases management, because first you need to make leafy area, then you need to preserve the leafy area. So we need to control pests and disease. Soil management in terms of mulching to storage the water, intercrop cultures to make more organic matter, nutritional in terms of making no chemical problems for the root system to grow. The root system needs really to go really deep. Depends on the area, shading trees may help or not. Shading trees have this effect of decreasing the temperature in the summer and increasing in the winter. But then according to the amount of shade, it may damage. And where we are, we have a lack of energy during the winter, and this is a problem. But depends where you are, having shading trees may improve this. Irrigation may help you with drought, but depends on the condition and depends the frost you have, nothing will work. So if you achieve -3, -4 degrees Celsius, there is nothing we can do. And we saw this in some areas. Talking specifically on frost, there is some salt. There is a nitrate, chlorine nitrate that will decrease the sap freezing point in 1 or 2 degrees. So you can spray these 1 or 2 days before frost. That will help according to the temperature. Then you need to avoid heavy mulching when you have frost, because or the soil is going to be too cold, and that is going to be worse. You need to storage warm. So you need to change your management according to how the weather is going. And in terms of support, we have this initiative with this IDAP to improve 4 seasons project assistance with small farmers, because you need to spread the worth of the good practices. And for us, this will bring a lot of more resilience in the chain as a whole. So these coffees, if they are wealthy, no matter the kind of stress, they will recover faster, because everything is about storing energy and then applying energy or for fruit or for branch or for root system or for leaf regrowth. So if you don't see leaf, if you don't see carbon being stored, then you cannot reallocate. So you need to make your buffer, your storage. So it's healthy plants storing carbon, and then you are gonna use this to regrow.
Thanks a lot.
My pleasure.
Hello, if nobody else asks a question, I also have a question, Luis. So first of all, thank you very much. Very interesting presentation. And my name is Franziska, and I work for GEPA company in Germany. We are a fair trade importer for many, many years. We buy coffee from all sorts of origin, and we have like TSU, very long, almost 40 years relationships to many cooperatives in different countries. So I met Leonard and the TSU team 2 years ago in Berlin at a very, very interesting event just before the World of Coffee. And what we see at the moment, especially with all the troubles with logistics, is that many partners, many cooperatives have liquidity problems. So Luis, I wanted to ask if you also face that and how you deal with that, or what kind of support is needed there. You know, with all the delays in shipment, liquidity is a big issue at the moment.
Same issue. Delays is decreasing our cash flow. Yeah. And is increasing the bank interest. So this is a tricky one. We need to work close with the partners, because in the other side, we know that also delaying the shipment and the delivery of coffee, we are also damaging the cash flow of our importers. So we are just having these harder conversations with the shipping lines, saying, look, we're having this problem of the quality is going to be decreased. Our cash flow is going to be destroyed. Our partner's cash flow is going to be destroyed, and your big part of the responsibility is yours. We are renegotiating with banks, but of course we are receiving higher interest rates for this. So this is a really hard situation. And I think in small co-ops, it's even harder, because if they have fixed contracts with farmers, I think default is going to be a huge problem. And that's what I'm seeing in Colombia and Centrals with some friends of mine. A lot of co-ops that are having a huge default from farmers selling in the local market instead of delivering the coffees. We are also suffering this in Brazil. We had not default because of prices, but we had default because of weather, and we are having to come to the market to purchase more coffee. So we use some financial tools for that to protect. When we have predictions of severe winter, we make some options to protect ourselves, because then we know we are probably going to have defaults. So we need to change the contracts for 22, 23, and we will need to go to the market to purchase this coffee spot. So that's the way we see. We always monitoring weather conditions, and we are always looking our position to make it as wealth as possible, and then dilute the risk between farmers, us, and the importers.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, we also feel that, especially for cooperatives, this high price phase is a very tricky one, because now you will really see which cooperative is able to keep up also with the competition in the local markets now, because there's super high competition with all the big multinationals in that area. And yeah, so, but thank you very much. Yeah.
You are welcome.
Okay, can I have a question, Louis? Thank you very much for this well, very interesting presentation. A lot of information, and it's quite you're quite an expert, I believe, in this. My name is John, and I work for Pelican Rouge Coffee Roasters in the Netherlands. We're a medium-sized roaster in the Netherlands, serving mainly the EU customers in the vending industry. Recently, Marta and Leonard visited us to see the factory and to talk about specialty coffees, but also about the industrial more coffees being used. My question to you, for the Brazil, the drought, many of the areas is being irrigated at the moment. How much of the what's the percentage of irrigation in Brazil on the big plantations, and does it differ from many years ago when there were peaks with drought?
There are two. No, thank you. Nice to meet you, John. Thank you for the question. Two different answers. One answer is the percentage in the big areas, and one is the percentage in Brazil. There is a misunderstanding that many people think that the biggest part of Brazilian farmers are big. They are not. The big majority are medium to small farmers. As a whole, we have less than 5% of irrigated areas, less than 5. In the big areas, this is probably bigger. I will say around 30 to 40%. But then it's regional. The big irrigated areas that you see are probably in Cerrado, where you have flat lands, and Bahia, where you also have flat lands. So it's Cerrado from Minas, Cerrado from Bahia. And there is more and more medium to small farmers looking for drip irrigation. And we had last year a huge improvement on this, because some of the companies were offering the option of making a barter. So you change coffee for irrigation systems, but it's still quite low. In the mountains, it's really low used. In the flatlands, the huge areas, you use Cerrado, and as an average, less than 5% is irrigated.
Okay, thank you. Yeah.
Any more questions? Now is the time. Let's see. Yeah. For Francisca, I also want to say that indeed across the 14 origins that we work, we're seeing these struggles, and it's kind of for us, more than anything, it's a proof of concept, you know, to see whether strong relationships, not just between us and the exporter, but between the exporter and the co-ops, and the co-ops and the farmers, whether it's worked, you know, whether 4 years of higher prices when the market is low, whether it translates into farmers and cooperatives helping us out. And it's, for me, ethically, it's a difficult thing, because I think however high the prices are that we pay, we're still underpaying everyone. So when the market is high, that's just what we should pay. But it's of course something that we have to carry as a whole system. And but I'm very proud also of the way the roasters and everyone, and you know, just by open communication, we, as you said, Luis, we will get through this together.
Yes.
And
Yeah, maybe that's a good ending of this really nice afternoon. Thank you so much, Luis, for your contribution, and I hope that in general, just the whole industry will commit itself to educating itself and to see the intricacies of coffee production in the way that you do. So yeah, let's leave it at that, and wish you all a great weekend and great continuation of your coffee journey.
Thank you, Leonard. Will you share the presentation?
Yeah, we will. Yeah,
Perfect.
We'll upload it somewhere. We'll see somehow. It's
We'll find a
recording.
way.
We've never done this before, but we'll find a way.
Yeah, I'm sure. And Luis, can you also share your contact?
Yes, for sure. I'll send this
Perfect.
head up.
Okay, great.
Everyone.
thank you.
Okay.
Thank you all.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, my friends. Wish a blessed and wonderful weekend. Enjoy your Friday wine now.
Yes.
For me, it's still coffee time.
Right.
Yes.
Still have a few hours
Yes.
to go, so good luck with that one, and later on next weekend too.
Thank you very much.
Bye
It's
bye.
my pleasure.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.